Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
Hello and welcome to the Women Today podcast. This week we've learnt about a new charity being set up by two local mums, found out about the Manx Grand Prix, and we were joined by a clown. But first we were joined by two guests who experience problems with their hearing. Now our guests today are here to talk specifically about tinnitus, something I think many of us will have heard of but know only as ringing in the ears, and we'll be finding out more about the support available for people suffering from it on the island. But first, Matthew Rudd, let's find out a little bit more about you. You are the Advanced Specialist Audiologist at Nobles Hospital. How did you become interested in audiology?
I came to audiology quite late in life. I've got a hearing loss myself, a severe hearing loss on the left side and a dead ear on the right. And I saw a course going at University College in London, and I thought, that seems interesting, and it progressed from there. I had 7 years at St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, and then I've since moved to the island last year.
You've also have experience of tinnitus.
That's correct, yes. I do occasionally get what's called high drops, where there's a change in my hearing levels, maybe once or twice a year, where my hearing seems to change, and then I will get a bout of tinnitus. It can cause quite a bit of anxiety when it does happen, but usually it returns to normal after a period of time. And then very occasionally I do get tinnitus, but it tends to come and go at other times.
If it's not a stupid question, what does your tinnitus sound like?
It's very quite often it's very hard to describe. I suppose at best I could describe it as a sort of it's almost like hum. And it can have different pitches. It sort of changes. Suddenly it goes up a pitch, but it doesn't really sound like the sort of day-to-day sounds that one experiences. So it's very difficult to say, it's like a particular sound that we hear every day.
What actually is it then? What causes tinnitus?
It's very hard. It's very hard to actually say what causes tinnitus. But having said that, there have been a number of experiments where they sort of demonstrated what might contribute towards it. So there's quite an old experiment, date from 1953, by Heller and Bergman, where they got a group of people with very good hearing, and they took them one at a time into a soundproof room, giving them each person the instruction to listen out for any sound they could hear in this soundproof chamber. The door was shut on them, but they didn't actually play any sound to them at all. They were left in complete silence. And what they found was that 95% of those people experienced tinnitus when they were put in that environment. So that very early experiment demonstrated that actually the ear makes a background noise. If it's quiet enough, you start noticing it. Okay?
Right.
And even if you've got very good hearing, if you put into a soundproof chamber and there are no sounds at all present in that environment, you will start to experience tinnitus. But there's nothing wrong with your hearing or your ears. Now, following on from that, it would then mean that if you have any underlying condition, if you get a bad cold, your ears get a little bit muffled, it causes what's called an occlusion effect. So one form of tinnitus could be that form where actually the underlying noise is not necessarily indicative of anything sinister, but it's a side effect of some underlying condition like having a bad cold, earwax in the blocking the ear, that sort of thing. So one, and then the eustachian tube dysfunction that I was talking earlier about, where, say, for example, you go on an aeroplane, the air pressure at 32,000 feet is less than it at ground level, and you come down to land, and lo and behold, your hearing starts going down a bit until you pop your ears. Now, until that moment, when you're descending, the air pressure inside your middle ear cavity is still what it is at 32,000 feet. So the air pressure externally starts pushing the eardrum inwards, and you start feeling uncomfortable. You feel you want to pop your ears, and then you pop your ears, introduce air down your eustachian tube into the middle ear cavity, pops your eardrum, and then your hearing goes back to normal.
It's almost like you feel as if you've got water in your ear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like when you keep shaking your head to get it out.
That's right, yeah.
So how many people actually suffer from tinnitus on the island, do we know?
Well, it's estimated it's like 15% of the population. Now, of that 15%, a proportion may have chronic tinnitus that's ongoing for a considerable period of time. Some people might have it for a number of months, a number of years. Other people might find that they get tinnitus for a short period of time after having a bad cold, or they might have some sort of infection, and then temporarily they will develop tinnitus, but then after a period of time it resolves itself and it subsides and disappears. But there are a small group of people who suffer from tinnitus for long periods of time, and then they find that they either get to a point of acceptance towards it, or they get into a position of finding it extremely difficult with their day-to-day life.
As you say, a huge range.
That's right.
Well, we are also joined today by Lucy Buxton. And Lucy, you suffer from tinnitus yourself.
Yes, I do. I've had it for quite a few years now.
And you also have other hearing loss, and so it's all part of one medical condition.
Yeah, my tinnitus, it's sort of linked in with something else. I was diagnosed with Meniere's disorder a few years ago, but looking back, I've actually had that and the accompanying tinnitus for, must be 30-odd years or more.
So how would you describe your tinnitus?
On a day-to-day basis, mine is quite easy to describe. It's quite a high-pitched, whooshy, almost sort of static noise. You know, I can hear it now. It's just there in the background. Somewhere where it's quiet, it's much more noticeable for me. But there are other times where if I'm particularly tired or particularly stressed, then it changes. It can get louder. I've had times where I've torn the bedroom apart trying to find the ticking clock that isn't there, because you hear this ticking sound, which I think might be related to what Matthew was saying about the ear picking up on body sounds, because I swear it's the same as my heartbeat. So it's that sort of regular tick, 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 and you're thinking, well, where's the clock? I've heard heavy machinery, I've heard sort of washing machine noises, all sorts. It comes and goes, but I've only ever had it at the point where it's woken me up, or it's kept me awake at night once, and that was earlier in the year, this year, when I was sort of just particularly run down, had a cold, was under the weather, too busy with various different things.
You say it's been over 30 years. I cannot imagine how that must feel to just keep it there. I don't know. It's still being inside your ear, I suppose.
It gets, for me, it's just me. It's just there. I have tinnitus. It's there in the background. I've learned. I've done some relaxation techniques and things. Matthew's been really helpful with giving me some CDs and things. But the more stressed about it you get, the more aware of it you are, and the worse it becomes. If I can get myself into that sort of, it's just there. It's in the background. It does fade away. It never goes, but my brain sort of switches into other sounds around. So you'll never find me generally at home in a quiet room. I will always have the radio on, and preferably something with sort of talking on, because even if I can't hear particularly well, because my hearing isn't great, you just pick up on those. The brain tries to hear the speech that's going on and tries to make sense of that speech, and you fool the brain into thinking about that and concentrating on that sound rather than the tinnitus. That the worst time's the first thing in the morning and last thing at night. That
sense of kind of distraction, I guess, away from it.
Yeah.
Matthew, I'm just thinking in terms of treatment and that kind of thing, but is there a cure for tinnitus?
Not as such. there's help out there with managing the tinnitus, but as with regards to a cure, there isn't any sort of a pill that would fix all tinnitus. I think part of the problem is that there are lots of different presentations of tinnitus. There can be certain underlying conditions that may be treated, and as a result of which resolve a problem with tinnitus. But that's not actually treating the tinnitus itself, it's actually treating a condition. So, for example, there is a relationship between TMJ, temporal mandibular joint disorder, and also with teeth grinding. And there is, as far as I'm aware, there can be treatment for that. And then there are also straightforward treatments. Say, if you've got a lot of earwax built up in your ear, then you may be hearing tinnitus more than otherwise. You extract the earwax, and then the tinnitus will subside.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I have got TMJ and I do grind my teeth and I have to wear mouth guards, and I do really suffer every now and again with, the occasional day where I do get tinnitus, and I never actually put the two and two together. So I've learned something.
We met through CAMHS. We were completely separate, didn't know each other, and CAMHS brought us together because we had two children who were struggling with mental health issues. Both of us wanted to find out more about the issues that were going on. I mean, I don't know about you, Lorna, but I read what was going on, but it wasn't the same as actually standing there with somebody else and talking face to face. Somebody who had been through what I was going through. Somebody who could put their arms around me and say, I know exactly how you're feeling. It's all right. I've been there. I've done it.
It's invaluable. That support is just absolutely invaluable.
To see the look on somebody's face
and understand
exactly how you're feeling, that pit of despair that you're in as a parent, to know that your child is, I don't know, what's the word to use?
Well, I think, they're struggling, aren't they? They're struggling, and they have some support through the GP has probably referred them to CAMHS for many reasons and many issues. So there will be some support there for them. I have to say, I don't think it's enough support, but there is some support there for them. But there really isn't any support for the parent. And quite rightly, the child, is the one who is going through the experience. So they need the medical assistance and they need the consultants. But as a parent, you're going through it as well. And when you leave that consultancy room, you're then the carer, the mother, the nurse, the psychotherapist, all of those things rolled into one. And that is so hard to do on a daily basis, 24/7. You may have other children, you may have a house full of family members that all need your attention. And it's exhausting. And to come across another mum who you just have to literally look at and they know exactly what you're going through. You don't have to explain anything. Just a phone call, a text message. And we have found, I know I have found massive support in Emma, just being able to sort of send her a message saying, I'm opening a bottle of wine. That's it. My day has just gone from bad to worse. And that's kind of how it is. And you might laugh, you might cry, you might shout, you might scream with each other, but you understand. And every day there are parents out there struggling on their own because they haven't got that support, and they've probably, like we did, looked for it. Google parent support Isle of Man.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Which is why we, I think, as two very headstrong people, really, and we're hell-bent determined that we were going to do this and we were going to make it work. We're not martyrs, we're not angels, we're not doing this for ourselves. We really are doing it because we know how it feels to be on the floor, kicking and screaming, and you don't know which way to turn, you don't know who to turn to. And we just want people to know that we're there, and the bigger the network is, the more support there will be.
First of all, we started off trying to just do a support group, a small support group, but we couldn't get the exposure because obviously we're trying to keep it quite private and quite personal. And then we just said, you know what, we need to form a charity, we need a registered charity number so we can start fundraising and getting it out there, basically.
Do you think you're brave?
No, possibly stupid.
Do you know, that's exactly what I was going to say.
I think it's just you feel so passionate about it because you've experienced it, you've actually lived, you know, our children are actually doing okay now. You know, we sound like we're going, you know, living a nightmare. We have done, but...
On more than one occasion.
But they're coming to terms, they're getting a bit older, a bit of maturity, and it's sort of, you know, things are in place to help them. But I often think about the young ones now who are just maybe going into secondary school, who are just going to start feeling that pressure come September. Parents who, like us, will be all of a sudden hit with this teenager who's struggling. And we want to see a lot of stuff other than this support group, you know.
And as you say, this is very much for the parents who are just trying to keep it all
Afloat,
together.
Keep their heads above water.
Just
to try and, you know, support enough to drag somebody out who feels like they're drowning just every now and again, just to throw them a life jacket.
So what are the plans at the moment? What's going to happen next?
The first step is we need to do some fundraising, because obviously without some money in the bank account for the charity, we can't offer too much other than just a phone call, or maybe, you know, just us running around, maybe, you know, trying to support everybody, which is just not going to happen. But we've got a number of other mums who would like to come on board and support the charity, all with different skills. You know, they may be able to teach yoga, they may do horse rider, they may do whatever, massage, anything. But all of us together can support each other in different ways. So first of all, we need to do some fundraising. We need to get as much support from local businesses as we can. We're going to do a dance-a-thon at the Villa, fingers crossed, if we can get all the support we need. And it's looking like it's heading more towards Christmas now. We've got a number of dance teachers who are very much involved and want to support us with that. And then from there, depending on the funds and what we have available, we would like to start offering out different things. Maybe a local support group. Ideally, we would love to have a north, south, east and west location.
I mean, we're looking to have instant support, aren't we, for people as well? Yeah. Because as a parent, the time that you want that support is then. It's not
tomorrow.
And it's not, we can offer you an appointment on. Mm-hmm. You need that help and you need it now. If you're that desperate that you are asking for help as a parent, apart from anything else, you feel like you're failing as a parent to actually voice the fact that you need that support. You want it now. So we're looking at mobile phones and different parents who within the charity will hold the phone on a rota basis.
And these the parents, you know, they're not just nosy parents who are looking to sort of talk to people and find out their business. They're going to be skilled with listening skills. Samaritans have been very supportive. They've said that, you know, they will help us to gain the listening skills. Once we can get the funds in place and we can sit down and work a full team of sort of everything out, then we can work out who we can support, who needs it most.
Hopefully in the future might be able to employ these sort of people through the charity so that we can have 24-hour cover at the end of the phone, 24-hour assistance for the parents that actually, like I keep saying, that pit of despair because they feel that they need that support now.
Our guest today is Caroline Etherington, the manager and race secretary of the Manx Motorcycle Club and a leading figure in the organisation of the Manx Grand Prix. Caroline, practice starts this weekend. This must be quite a stressful part of your year.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's very busy, but it's sort of now we're just tomorrow we start signing on the riders. So I would say the last 2 weeks is when it's been absolutely totally full on. We're just sort of fine-tuning the last arrangements now, and all the riders have a lot started arriving on Monday, so there's lots of people up at the grandstand, so it's starting to get a really good buzz about it, which is nice. And the riders are coming in and out of the office. And
is that sometimes the first time you meet some of these riders face to face that you might have emailed or spoken to on the telephone with?
Yeah, I mean the newcomers, a lot of the guys and the girls have been coming sort of for a few years now, but it's always nice to put a face to a name, you know, when we're dealing with the riders. And the newcomers particularly, there's always loads of questions to ask, you know, because it's quite a daunting thing. A lot of them, if they're coming from overseas, you know, Australia, New Zealand, they've never done it before, so the logistics, a lot of them will bring their bikes as well, so they have to be shipped over months in advance. So
And they start moaning about where they are in the paddock and, too close to the
Mostly the weather.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, as New Zealand left his winter behind, and it's warmer than it is here now. So it's
yeah, I can
an
imagine
explosion
there's a
in the
lot
morning, isn't there?
Well, as
Yeah.
we heard earlier, you started the Manx Motorcycle Club in 1988, and you actually say that when you walked into your first committee meeting, you were greeted by 18 men.
Yeah.
What was that like for you as a young woman?
It was a bit daunting. You know, they've all been involved with motorbikes for quite a long time, and I was just sort of feeling my way along and trying to get all the information together, because we're all senior race officials, so they were all starting to explain to me how the event ran, and I actually got some hands-on experience during the event. I went over into the time box and learnt how the timekeepers operate, and I went round all the different departments. So the first year it was like an overload of information, but it was great when you went round all the different departments. I could actually see from the administration point of view why I was doing it and how it all coordinated, and so there's so many people involved, but it's actually during the event it all absolutely runs like clockwork. Well, apart from a few minor glitches, but everybody just is such a big team that all work together.
Interestingly, though, you started actually before women could compete in the MGP.
Yeah.
That was in 1989, I think.
Yeah, 1989. So we had 3 female riders for the first time.
Were they taken seriously?
Well, some of the male riders, I think they knew them, but there was a lot, I think, that were sceptical, sort of, would they be able to manage to ride round the TT course, because they're a woman. And
you said there was a few jokes about women drivers.
The equivalent of female drivers, it was female riders, so I think we must have heard everyone in the book by that time. But yeah, it was great. It was some of the old school was sort of women riding bikes, sort of thing, but majority of them, they at that time everything was changing, so that women were starting to get more, sort of bigger roles and important roles, and also be introduced to often male-dominated sports areas. All around the world it was changing, and women were sort of wanting to be recognised that they equally could do all these different sports or various careers.
And now, 26 years later, they're very much seen as equals, I hope.
Yeah, very much so.
So how many women are competing this year?
4. So we have one lady from Janice Lehman, who's from South Africa. We have Ali Foster, who's local, and Sarah Boys and Jenny Timms. So yeah, it's great that we've got the women, and there's also a lot more women involved in the organisation as well.
Is there room for one more?
Oh, definitely.
This is Doris. Yeah. Do you think I could fit on the back of a bike?
I don't know whether the crash helmet would fit on that wig with the rollers in.
Can you imagine your leathers? Goodness me, the colours.
I find it hard to keep a straight face while I'm talking here.
Oh, you just look at me. Okay, I'm straight across from you, just eye contact.
Doris with a weird wig on.
Well, tell me about the newcomers then, because I know you've had an incredible response this year. Whereabouts are they all coming from?
Yeah, I mean, they're coming from, well, we've got England, we've got Ireland, we've got Japan, Italy, France, Germany, Australia, New Zealand. So it's great, it really is very much an international event. And we do have some 2 weekends earlier on in the year where riders can come over and, they're taken on to do laps around the course, and we explain the whole process of entering the event, and they get to see how a bike needs to be prepared for the races, and it's a really good learning opportunity for them. But that only tends to be obviously the ones from overseas. I can't really afford to come for a weekend, but there's lots of riders, also newcomers, that come over throughout the year, not just on those weekends, just to do laps, because they realise that it's all very well watching it on a DVD, but it's not.
Or playing the games that are around the world now.
Yeah, they're playing the games, and they actually find from playing the games, when they come to do it, for real, that actually the road Canberra is a lot different than just seeing it on the PlayStation games. So they're very dedicated, and we're constantly getting emails from them asking lots of questions and wanting to talk to the experienced riders. And we have a minibus that goes out during practice twice a day, and they're just experienced riders, either current riders or ex-riders. They'll take them out, and if they're having any problems with certain corners or sections of the course, they'll stop, they'll get out and walk it and talk it through. So it's really is, it's great. So we're hoping that they'll stay with us for a couple of years until they want to move on. Some don't. Some are quite happy to stay with the Manx Grand Prix.
As you said before as well, that there isn't the prize money, so there must be that sense of loyalty, or you must try and drill in that sense of loyalty to the Manx.
Yeah. I mean, they really are. They get either a medal for finishing the race, or they'll get a trophy or a replica. So they are very, very dedicated, very passionate about what they do.
When we talk about the Manx Grand Prix, I think we often assume, though, that these are the riders who just aren't good enough for the TT. Do you think that's fair?
No, I don't think it's fair at all, because a lot of riders will start with the Manx Grand Prix and cut their teeth on the event, and there probably isn't quite as much pressure, so they can really learn the course, and then they'll move on. But the TT, you've got people of all varying abilities, and it's the same with the Manx Grand Prix. And some of them are quite happy they're not wanting to move up the ranks, and they'll stay. They'll improve their own times every year. But no, I mean, I think all the riders at the Manx Grand Prix have a lot of ability.
Do you think it's unfair to try and compare the two when they are obviously such separate entities, the Manx and the TT?
Well, I think at the TT there's the very top 10 band, but then I would say the rest of the field, they're equally they're on a par. The Manx Grand Prix are on a par with them.
Women Today, brought to you by citywing.com for your next flight away.
And our guest this afternoon is Dr. Katrina Mackie, a history lecturer at the Isle of Man College. Katrina, we're going to speak now about what is on offer at the college in terms of higher education. But firstly, what does higher education actually mean?
Right. Broadly speaking, higher education refers to any sort of post-18 level education that's at university level. So you've got your basic undergraduate degree programmes, which are 3 years or 4 years. You've got HNC, 1 year HNC or a 2 year HND or a 2 year foundation degree. They're all kind of university level qualifications. So that's higher education. Further education, I guess you could describe as those qualifications that are at the same level as A level. Whether it's a BTEC or whatever else. So it's a university level qualifications, really.
The Isle of Man College is an associate college of the University of Chester. What does that mean in terms of getting your degree or your qualifications and actually graduating?
It means that all of our degree programmes are validated through the University of Chester. So if you come to study at the Isle of Man College, you're not just an Isle of Man College student, you're a University of Chester student, and that means that you've got access to all of the facilities that are available through the University of Chester as well. So you get the best of both worlds. You've got access to all of their online resources as well as all the fantastic resources that we have here at the college. So it's almost like the Isle of Man College is something like an external campus of the University of Chester.
I think when I was at school, and certainly a bit earlier than that as well, the Isle of Man College was seen as somewhere that you went to do those vocational skills. It seems like over the last few years the Isle of Man College has done a lot to try and demonstrate that it is also an academic institute.
It's changed quite a lot over the last few years, particularly the last 4 years. The college has really developed its higher education offering, and it's partly in line with the government's agenda to develop the number of Manx graduates so that we've got a very highly skilled and highly educated workforce on the island. But just in general, I think we're seeing a sea of change, whereas previously higher education meant going to university, which meant going to the UK. Nowadays, getting higher education is a choice between going to the UK or staying at the Isle of Man College, because we have so many different programme areas on offer. So we've developed at the college our programmes partly to meet the economic needs of the Isle of Man. So we've got computer science, engineering, business studies, events management and marketing, but also we've developed courses in areas of cultural importance such as art and history and heritage, both of which I should also say have considerable economic benefit to the island.
Do you think the opportunity or the option of going to the college is seen as a like for like as going to university in terms of its weight as a qualification?
I think now it is, yeah. We've been doing a lot of work with schools and talking to teachers in schools and really getting them to understand that what we're offering now is it's a university degree. It's a degree with Chester University, a very, very reputable university in the UK. And there are actually a lot of advantages to studying at the college. Our students tend to do better than their UK counterparts. So we've over the last 3 years, for example, 71% of our students have graduated with either a first-class degree or a 2-1, and that's much higher than the UK average. But also in terms of employability, there are advantages to studying on island. So over 90% of our students routinely find relevant employment before they graduate or on graduation. And again, that's a huge percentage of the student population. And there are various reasons for that. It's partly because we have really good students who work really hard. Partly because we have excellent teaching staff who are very highly experienced and very highly motivated. It's partly because students have access, as I mentioned, to the excellent facilities that we have here at the college, but also the excellent facilities at the University of Chester. And also, if you're studying at the Isle of Man College, we tend to have fairly small class sizes, and that means that students get a very high level of personal and academic support throughout their degree, which you tend not to get in a UK university, whereas if you're studying history at UK university, you might be in a class of 200 or 300 people, whereas at the Isle of Man College, you're looking at 10 to 15 people. So,
does it work in the same way that you have to get the relevant A-levels or something similar, and you have to get a B and 2 Cs? Or
yeah, what we ask for is if for school leavers, we're asking for 240 UCAS points for most of our degrees, so it's very similar to what you'd find in the UK. The application process is slightly different, so rather than applying through UCAS, you actually apply directly to the Isle of Man College. But what we suggest to students is that when they're thinking about what they want to do and they're applying to UCAS, to also submit an application to the Isle of Man College as well. And when they get the results in, they can decide which offers they want to accept. And I think it's becoming more, people are starting to realise that going to the UK to study is not necessarily for everybody. Some people prefer to remain at home to retain those family and social networks and the support that they get from them. Some people, for some people, it's just more financially viable to stay at the college. So there's no, if you go to study in the UK just now, the government are asking for a £2,500 tuition fees contribution every year. And I should say that the government are still very, very generous in the support that they give to students. But if you're studying at the Isle of Man College, you don't have to pay that contribution fee.
Do you think that a lot of people are really taking that side of things more seriously now, that thinking about the financial consequences of 3 years in the UK? Because I suppose it's not just fees, as you mentioned, there's living costs, there's going back to the island.
Absolutely.
It all comes into it.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to think more seriously, partly because we now have so much more on offer on island, but partly again because of changes in the economy. People are starting to think, well, what is it I really want to do? And again, if ultimately you want to work on the island, then there are advantages to studying here, because you have the opportunity to engage with potential employers throughout the course of your degree, and the degrees that we have at the college take advantage of that. We've very strong links with businesses and industries on the island, so students are actually have lots of opportunities, including work placements, including student projects, to actually get to meet with the people that they might end up working for at the end of their degree.
Have the numbers largely increased over the years of students coming to the Isle of Man College, and do you think that's because of the backup we were just talking about there, the financial implications?
With higher education, certainly. We've got nearly 300 people now, students studying higher education at the Isle of Man College, so it's a really nice, close-knit community, and we have lots of events that are specifically for our higher education students.
What's that compared to when you say you've got 300? Like, what is that as an increase compared to maybe last year? Or
I think last year we had round about 250-ish,
okay.
And so it's been increasing year on year, partly because of we have more programmes on offer now, and partly because I think students are thinking a little bit more carefully. And there are also people on the island that want to get a higher education degree but who can't leave the island. They might be carers, they might have children to look after, so giving them the option to get those academic benefits on island is excellent.
You mentioned the numbers and the close-knit community, and I just, thinking back on my own higher education and my time at university, I guess a big part of it for me, though, wasn't just the academics. It was the fact that you were meeting new people. There were hundreds and hundreds of societies you could join. There was the student union. What is the Isle of Man College doing to provide that side of university or higher education life?
There's certainly no way that we can compete with the types of offers that you're going to get in UK universities. We don't have hundreds and thousands of societies, but we do have a number of clubs and societies at the college that you can actively engage with. It's, in a sense, nowadays it's important to get a good grade during when you're studying, but it's also important to take part in academic life, as you said. It helps to boost your life skills, your employability skills at the end of the day. So we do have a lot of ways in which you can get involved at the college. We run the Duke of Edinburgh Award, for example, and we have lots of sporting activities that you can engage with. We actually have a student experience officer who's dedicated to helping improve student experience. If you wanted to set up a club, the student experience officer will help you to do that. So there are actually quite a lot. And the other thing that we would say is that although the college itself doesn't have the facilities that a larger university has, you're living on the Isle of Man. So your campus actually is the whole island. And there are so many things that you can engage with, places where you can get part-time jobs, you can volunteer, you can actively engage with all sorts of things, both at the college and on the island in general, that will help to improve your experience as a student.
And as you say, it's often more flexible if you are a carer or you can't leave the island for some reason. Do you offer part-time courses?
Yeah, most of our degree programmes are also available part-time for those who are working part-time or working full-time even. So yeah, that's definitely an option. And I think higher education in general is becoming a lot more flexible these days, where you can chop and change a little bit. So you can start a degree part-time and then switch to full-time if you want. One of the things that we're offering on the new History and Heritage degree is that if you start the degree at the Isle of Man but decide that in year 2 or year 3 you want to experience life at the University of Chester, you can actually transfer to their history degree and finish your degree there.
Where can you find out more information or possibly pick up a prospectus?
Yeah, we have a very good website, iomcollege.ac.im, and you can find information on there about all of our different degree programmes. And there's a prospectus on there, application forms and information about who to contact if you want further information.
It's something we hope our loved ones will never go through, and I'm sure something that shapes you for the rest of your life. But what is it really like to lose someone you love at an early age? And what support is available here on the Isle of Man for those who do? Well, that's what we're hoping to find out today, as we're joined in the studio by 3 people from Cruse Kids, a part of Cruse Bereavement Care Isle of Man. Firstly, Jill Skinner. Keen listeners will recognise your name, recognise your voice. You've been on the programme before, so we didn't scare you away too much.
You didn't, Kate. No, It was lovely.
Oh, glad to hear it. So remind us then, what is your role at Cruse?
My role, I work primarily with older children, so high school age. I have another colleague, the other Jill, who you met last time, who works primarily with primary school children. However, obviously, we do sort of support each other at different times. And our role, we provide a whole raft of support for children and young people who've been bereaved. And with Cruse, it is we don't have a waiting list. We see the children and young people straight away. We see anybody, irrespective of the time since the death, the relationship with the person who's died, and we don't have a sort of an end of time. We don't see them for, say, 6 weeks and you're mended now.
We're talking specifically today about Cruse Kids. What's the idea behind that?
It came really from, initially, we supported on a one-to-one basis, and a common theme amongst the young people I was working with was that they felt isolated and they didn't know anybody else in a similar situation. We've not called it Cruse Kids, it's what our Cruse Kids have dubbed it over the years, and so we extended that to 9 years ago. We had our first sort of social event, and it's sort of grown from there to where we're at today, which I'm sure we'll talk about as our 3/4 of an hour goes on.
How does bereavement differ for young people from your point of view?
It depends very much on the age and, like anything else, upon the individual concerned. The main difference is with an adult. As adults, we all understand that bereavement is a permanent loss, a death. Somebody cannot come back. Whereas with a small child, their cognition, their development, they don't have that understanding at that stage. And so we have a different style of working there. and then at each sort of developmental stage, people may often and do often grieve afresh as it's a new level of understanding.
I think last time you were on, you were talking about those landmark points in a person's life, the graduation, the wedding day.
Yes.
I suppose that's something that children keep being reminded of as they go along.
Yes, they do, and sort of particularly, for instance, say Christmas, Mother's Day, Father's Day, starting a new school, all of those milestones. But we particularly, at Christmas, we always meet and have a big social before Christmas, because Christmas is a time when everybody's happy, except, you have these young people with a smile on their face, but, it's there's always what's going on behind there.
Well, as you say, we are also joined in the studio by two young women who have benefited from Cruse Kids over the last few years. Becca Greatbatch, how did you find out about the support that was on offer?
I think it was like my mum seeing it in the newspaper, and because it was like quite a few years after like we lost our dad, it kind of made sense because my mum had like support herself, whereas me and my sister didn't have that with us being such a young age. So my mum just contacted and was like, would you be able to help us? And I haven't left since.
You lost your dad in 2004.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what happened?
Well, it was kind of like a late diagnosis of multiple myeloma, which had stemmed in his spinal cord, and by the time that they kind of like discovered it and diagnosed it, it was just basically too late. But at 6 years old, you don't really understand that, and it was just kind of really difficult.
Is it possible to pinpoint when you do start to understand and comprehend it?
Not really.
How important has it been for you then to meet people and talk to people who really do understand what you've been through and what you're talking about?
It's been absolutely amazing, like, because you find that people are in similar situations and you're not kind of alone. So it helps so much.
Well, Niamh Stringer, you also lost your dad to cancer. You were just 13 years old. Is it possible for you to explain what that was like?
It was really hard, because for me and my sister, dealing with something like that, even though I was 13, as a teenager, it's still like trying to understand, like what was going on, even though, my mum and dad tried to explain, because they want us to know. It's still like, now I'm older and I have more understanding, like Jill said, you kind of like, you start breathing again, like, because now you understand, what it went, and then, so my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, but he was very ill for most of me and my sister's life, so, he'd go into hospital, but there was always that hope that he'd come back, because he always did, and then, we found out about Cruse through hospice, so my mum contacted Jill, and like the same as Becca, I really enjoy going there, and I think there'll be many more years that'll be really good.
Is it weird when you tell people that you enjoy it?
Yeah, I find it hard, like I say, like I enjoy meeting new people, but there's less awkwardness when you can talk to somebody that understands what you're going through. So like the conversation flows better, and it's just
people aren't tiptoeing around you, I imagine.
Yeah, because like even though I have friends at school that maybe not have been through the same experience, nobody will ever understand. But trying to make them have some understanding is very hard. But when there's people that have been through the same thing, it's a lot better.
Did you find that? Because my wife lost her father when she was in her teens, and she said again the problem was she had lots of friends, but then people then stay away. Some of her own friends didn't talk to her because they didn't know what to say, because they was like, oh gosh, and instead of doing something, they were so worried about saying the wrong thing or not saying that they just stayed off, which made it even worse. Then did you experience that sort of?
Yeah, definitely. Because they're like, sorry, they feel like bad to say something, but then they also feel bad, like they don't want to say anything. So it's like it's hard either way.
Becca, you've just qualified as a mentor for Cruse. What does that actually mean?
It means that I'm able to support the younger members of Cruse Kids on like kind of a professional manner. So instead of speaking to adults, because when you are younger it can be daunting to speak to older people, but when you've got someone closer to your age it's kind of easier, so I'm able to now help them like Jill helped us.
I know.
She made it very clear.
I think she's here, Jo.
That's it. I'm here.
She calls herself a businesswoman turned sacred clown healer and holy fool, and performs in theatres, prisons, hospitals and at street festivals. Rachel Kane, thank you for joining us. I don't know whether I'm allowed to call you Rachel now you're in costume.
No, you can, yes. I'm still here, although Doris, my alter ego, is certainly beamed in.
I would say your alter ego Doris is Doris the New Age Guru.
Yes.
Who exactly is Doris?
Who is Doris? Well, it's me, by the way. Hello, everybody, on Manx Radio. I am Doris, beaming in from another planet, and I'm also known as Doris Eagle Feather Duster. That's my shamanic name. I'm a guru, love.
A guru.
A guru.
Explain exactly how you like to dress, Doris.
Well, it's such a pity, isn't it, that radio isn't visual. Yes, I've got a very nice wig on with some rollers in. You can have a look online. You'll be able to see me. I've got. I don't bother too much with makeup. I think mascara's a waste of time. I just plunk my specs on and smear my gob with lippy, and then I'm done and dusted, ready to go out and face the world.
Feather dusted, I imagine.
Yeah.
Can I speak to Rachel again, please? If
Hello,
that's okay.
I'm still
Hello,
here,
Rachel.
just about. Just about.
I think we're I knew this would be
going to
lively.
be very confusing, isn't it?
2 for the price of 1. There you
well,
go.
Rachel,
Yeah.
you had a very successful career in London, in the city, in the 1980s.
Yes.
Talk me through how you went from that to now living in Ibiza as Doris.
Right, I'll just remove Doris's wig so I can beam back in myself. It wasn't overnight, and actually big transformations are never overnight. They sound like amazing stories when you read them, but really it's only ever one step at a time. So it was a process for me of about 20, 30... Well, no, the actual process of changing from being a businesswoman to becoming a clown was a 7-year process. It didn't just happen instantly. And principally it started with me realising and really fully accepting that the job that I was doing just wasn't me, and being brave enough to walk away without knowing what I was going into. I think that's the thing when you're making any big transformation, is that willingness to just leap into the dark and go into the unknown and really not know what's coming next. So it's quite scary, but I took that leap, and I knew I had enough money to cope for about 4 or 5 months, but it became a 7-year transformationary process before I became a clown, or the journey to become a clown. And actually it wasn't really becoming one, it was more like reclaiming parts of who I really was in my soul and my essence. Things that I had known from when I was a child. I re-embraced dancing, singing, getting back into my body, doing a lot of physical, because clowning is basically physical theatre. So I did a lot of courses along the way of mask work, and I was very, very blessed to meet a wonderful teacher who himself was a clown, and I did a 4-year training with him, and most of the work we did was clowning in a healing context. And through the workshops and the training, I then became brave enough to start doing the work myself. So along that process, I worked with special needs and one thing and another. This was all still in London. And then eventually I just got to the point where I just wanted to break free completely and leave. And that's when I joined a circus.
I'm really sorry, Rachel. I'm listening to you. You're being very serious, very sensible, and I'm struggling with lipstick
with the
smudged
lipstick smeared around my
just across your face.
Just going back, you said clowning through healing, or can you just explain that briefly for me? What you mean by that?
Yes, because most people think of clowning, slapstick, circus. That's what they imagine clowns just doing that kind of work. We really, when you're a real clown, it's actually not just about being funny. It's about being authentic. So you will express all the full range of human emotions to which we're all we all feel these things, but we won't necessarily express them. Well, a clown has full permission to be sad, happy, angry, bored. All of the full. Really, a real clown is master of emotion, And when you're going into healing situations, for example, in hospitals or hospices, especially where people are coming close to the end, and there's so much going on emotionally, a clown can meet that emotion in full force, and through meeting it, like being a mirror to the soul, really, of who you're meeting. And that then becomes like transformatory medicine, and it dispels, takes away the fear.
And that's something you've actually done on the island?
Only a little bit here. I did a little bit. I went into the hospice once, and that was when I was looking after my dad. He came back to. He was a Manx man. He came back to the island. He died here, and when he was here, I was looking after him. So I did a little bit in the residential homes and just once in the hospice here. But I have done a lot in hospitals and hospices. Yeah.
You mentioned about kind of re-finding yourself and connecting with those parts of your personality that you perhaps shoved somewhere else for a bit.
Yes.
Do you think then that we all have an inner clown?
I do, and my work is called Clown Within, and I do think that everybody's got that inside them. Initially it's inner child work, so it's like finding the playful spirit inside, but I do think everybody's got that. It's a stripping bare, actually, to become a clown. It's like you go to the process of becoming empty. And we can all do that, but it's like taking the layers away. And so a lot of what I do with people in workshop situations is helping them to not be afraid to be stupid. You know, not risk looking the fool, which is, you know, this. Just risk it. Don't worry about what people think. Really don't worry about what people think. We often say we don't, but there's usually a bit of people that does somehow.
Something that's holding us back from looking the fool, as you say.
So I just help people to be more free, initially.
And is that always laughter, or do people's other emotions come out doing that?
We laugh a lot, and there's also veils of tears as well. A lot of crying. Yeah, a lot of crying. And they become healing, you know, that becomes part of the healing process.
So how do people react when you tell them what you do?
What I do, most people actually get intrigued. A lot of people say, "Oh, I've never met a real clown before." Yeah.
Do people ever say, do you know what, I'm just really terrified of clowns? Because that's a common fear.
Children, I was going to say, actually, I was going to ask you, because children really are quite scared of clowns, aren't they?
Some can be. When I was in the circus, there was a very insensitive slapstick clown who did some stuff right on the ringside, and little 2-year-olds, some of them were in tears, and I think a lot of it can start with that if you get a very insensitive clown. But no, not I have had the situation where people have come to me and said they have been, and then through doing work with me, they said, "Oh, thank you. You know, actually now I really understand what clowns do." Because really, where they get wounded is by clowns who are not really real clowns. Actually, they're just people who've plonked on the put the nose and the slap on and been rough. Yeah. And also the other thing about clowns where people are very frightened is because we are such mirrors that actually we show up, we see through everything. Now that puts people into that place of, they can't get away with anything. So it can be quite scary being in front of anyone. It doesn't have to be a clown, but anybody who can see the truth.
Are you scared, Kate?
I'm really scared.
You're not.
Someone tapping into my soul and seeing the true fear and insecurities inside me. I can't say it's pleasant. Thanks again to all our guests this week. And don't forget, if you miss a programme, you can always listen on demand to the whole thing via manxradio.com. Or, of course, join us every weekday from just after 2:00.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.